This is episode 272 of the Reel Me In, a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Chase and Joel will take a look at the newest incarnation of Hellboy starring David Harbour of Stranger Things, and then of course go over the news and trailers that dropped throughout the week, including the new teaser for Star Wars Episode 9. All that and more on today's Reel Me In. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and, if you're new to the show, what we typically do is what I mentioned up at the top. We'll go over some trailers, then jump into the news section, and review one of the movies that come out in theaters on the week that we record. And, of course, if you're a returning listener, welcome back. This is episode 272. Joel, it is quite different from what we typically do because, one, you are in my house, and two, we are reviewing a very baffling thing. Whether that could be good or bad, I guess you'll have to wait and find out. But, before I throw it over to my co-host, if you guys could, like this episode, share it around, and just let people know this is one of your favorite movie podcasts to listen to, and help us spread the word. Speaking of the co-host, he is sitting right across from me in the same room. No Skype call for this week or next week. It's going to be fun. We'll actually get to have real conversation, and it won't be I ask a question, 3 seconds later, Joel answers, or Joel does the same thing, I answer. So, Joel, welcome to it was about 2 or 3 feet across from me, and we're about to start the film festival. That's yes. Why you were here. So. I'm assuming you're excited. I'm excited, and just let people know what's been going on in your life this week.
Oh, it's been a good week. I've just been kind of building up to this, really, avoiding the cold that my parents have had for the last couple weeks. That's been fun. Source of tension for me in terms of trying to avoid them. I literally spent most of the week upstairs away from my mom, who was kind of on a rocking chair, or not a rocking chair, a recliner all week, just trying to avoid any sort of germs so that I don't get sick right before this. Other than that, it's been pretty uneventful. Just doing schoolwork and going to work. And now I'm here, and it's slightly frightening, of course. I'm just kidding. No, it's I'm in your new place for the first time. You had moved into a new place since the last time I was with you doing an episode like this, and it's a nice little pad. So I've been liking it. I'm at war with Chase's girlfriend's dog. That's one significant thing.
He bites ankles.
Yeah, he bites ankles. He hasn't bitten mine yet, but he's tried.
Joel has one of the best shields you could ever put on your leg. Pants.
Yes.
So that's why he hasn't really been bitten yet.
Yeah.
So
I'm a pants guy. I'm not a shorts guy, so I guess that's lucky. I never wear shorts even in the heat of the summer.
So basically what Joel just said is that he's disgusted at the fact that I wear shorts all the time because I have super white legs and they're hairy, they're big and gross, and he's just like, listen, I'm not about that
shins.
life.
I don't want to see your shins. No, but it's anyway, they're cute dogs anyway. There's 2 of them in here, and one I had not met before today. Yesterday, yes, technically. It's adorable, just rather scared of me and constantly surveilling me too, because he's following me around, making sure that I don't do anything that he does not approve of.
But see, you have to keep in mind that we're in his world.
Yeah,
he is 7 years old. He is technically older than us. Yeah. It's his world, and we're just living in it.
He runs the house.
Right. So we have to just go along with it. And speaking of that. If you hear whining in the background, it's not because we abuse our dogs. It's because if you guys wanted a clean recording, I had to put them in the back room, or they would start barking because they see ghosts apparently, and they start barking at nothing. But how was your week though? Like leading up to this,
I was just so excited. It's going to be a great festival. Mm-hmm. I'm excited for all of the movies. Generally speaking, there are 3 that I'm really stoked for. And in fact, of the top 3, I guess 2 of them are our first 2 movies that we're seeing tomorrow, as of this recording. Her Smell from Alex Ross Perry, really like this guy, his work, and Nonfiction from Olivier Assayas, who did stuff like Clouds of Sils Maria, Personal Shopper. Those are the 2 I've seen. He's also really prolific. He's been working since the 80s. on various things as director and otherwise. So I'm really excited for that. And this documentary called Midnight Family, which is about a family that runs EMS services at midnight or at night, and it's I assume free. I think it's a commentary on that kind of thing. They're in Mexico, in the inner cities, and
I'm hoping that one's good because that's the one I'm rooting for. Because last year we saw two of the best documentaries of the year with you didn't see the Mr. Rogers one, but I did, and then of course we saw Three Identical Strangers. But
Generation
we also saw
Wealth.
Generation Wealth, but we also saw one of the worst ones with The Blessing. So I'm hoping
it could backfire. I'm hoping that there's nothing like The Blessing among the ones that we're seeing.
Right.
And we're seeing 13, something like that. So
and I'm really looking forward to, and I'll explain more next week on the podcast, but I'm really looking forward to the Sunday night movie. For me personally, it's going to be quite life-changing. It's something I've been looking forward to for quite some time. I was going over the synopsis with Joel, and he's really pumped to talk about it and stuff. So yeah, I'm really excited to tell you guys about the Sunday night movie, whether it's good or bad, but most likely it'll be good. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Should be great. So, all right. Well, we have quite a few trailers. We're going to build up to the big one that just dropped within the last hour.
Right. Most people listen to this show later in the week, so they're, they probably already heard about the title. They've probably seen it a million times, so they're probably just like, please get to it.
Yeah.
You guys have to keep in mind, we just saw the trailer like an hour ago, so
if you're listening to this tomorrow, I don't know when Chase is going to post this. I assume it's just probably going to be right after we record.
Right.
I didn't know if it was going to be today or tomorrow when he did that. I never know. But yeah, you do have to keep that in mind. I'm still turning it over in my mind. So I want to be able to kind of give that few minutes, and I've barely, been moving since it happened. So I'll be able to listen to.
We have to process it.
We have to process it. I'll be able to use the time of Chase talk. I probably won't even pay attention to him during 4 of the other trailers that he's going to talk about. I'll use that time to kind of turn it over in my head. Kind of come up with some actual thoughts. So
right,
yeah.
Well, oddly enough, since Star Wars is a very small film, obviously.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that no other studio wanted to release anything this week. But that is actually the case because besides Fox, which is Disney now, and Disney releasing Lion King, nothing really dropped because they were trying to get out of the way of Star Wars Celebration. And, of course, the in-game press tour was also this week. So it's like Disney's just dominating. Anyways, Disney... I guess technically I can call it a Disney film now. It did release 2 films. The first one is Stuber under the 20th Century Fox department of Disney. And this one stars Kumail Nanjiani as a Uber driver named Stu. And he's doing his shift. He's driving along, and then he gets stopped by Dave Bautista, who is just like, can you go to this location, please? And so once they get to the location, Kumail realizes that, oh, wait, this is like police work. And so he basically hijacks this Uber driver and has him go around town with, various missions that he needs to get done. It's playing along the lines of like I'm trying to think of something.
Central Intelligence?
Not Central.
Oh,
I mean, it's going to be definitely like R-rated for sure.
I guess that was PG-13.
Right. So more of like not Lethal Weapon, but like... I can't really think of anything right now, but it's going to play more to the hard R. It's going to be super violent. It's going to be F-bombs everywhere. But I will say, unlike a movie that we're about to review, the gracefulness of the vulgarity and the violence actually it makes sense for the type of movie that they're going to deliver. Like, it doesn't seem over the top. It just seems like, hey, this is an Uber driver stuck in these weird situations. It's probably going to get violent and effed up.
I can't wait. It sounds like a comedic version of Collateral.
Yeah, it's hilarious. And the thing I like about it is that, believe it or not, this is perfect casting all around. You have Kumail and Dave, who are both great comedic actors. They have great comedic timing, but they have 2 completely different styles. That's why they work so well. Because Kumail is very fast with the improv. He is one of the best improv comedians, actors out there. Dave Bautista, he's really great at dry wit, where it's like he could sit there deadpan, say anything, and I'll probably laugh for the most part. So I think if you pair that
literally is what his role as Drax is based on, is his dryness. Yeah.
Well, when you think about that role, and then all the movies he's done beyond that, he has the same different type of or same style, but it works so well because Stu in this movie, he's going to be the normal guy. He's going to freak out and like he's going to be this very fast-witted person, while Dave Bautista has this mission-driven objective, and he's going to be doing the one-liners and stuff. So I like it. It was a good trailer.
Like I said, the director of this, Michael Dowse, just a guy that needs more work. He's a great studio comedy director. He started out as an indie director. I haven't seen his first couple of movies, but I love Take Me Home Tonight. I think that movie is incredibly underrated. I need to see Goon. I know you've seen Goon,
right.
But and I'm gonna do that. That's my mission before Stuber comes out, because we have copies coming in all the time at work, whether they're new or used, and so it's a very common movie to find within the place that I work. That is my goal, to see Goon, because I've seen What If. That was his last movie 5 years ago, with Daniel Radcliffe, Zoe Kazan, Adam Driver, a bunch of people, and love that. Love Take Me Home Tonight so much, and I can't wait for this one. So yeah, it sounds great.
Well, I'm typically not a fan of when movie studios put product placement in their titles, but I think Stuber is actually a pretty clever title because his name's Stu and the Uber driver. I don't know. It doesn't reek of like desperation to me.
It's a nice little chuckle, and it's interesting seeing Kumail go back to the Uber driver role, because that was in the Big Sick. That was there. I don't know if he was driving Uber when they met, but certainly something similar, I guess. I don't know, but that was based on real life, so it's clearly his, or partly on real life, so it's clearly his.
He's on fire.
Yeah.
Like when you get cast in a Marvel movie, he was in the Twilight Zone first episode, and of course he's on Silicon Valley. He does all these movies. Like dude's really
a real talent, and I can't wait to see him in the Eternals. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits into that.
Yeah, so. I love Kumail, and then of course Bautista. He's been on fire as of recently too. So, we're going to talk about the Star Wars trailer, right? Well. We have an actor who's going to appear in two conversations for this section, and that would be Oscar Isaac, because we're going to be talking about the Addams Family teaser that dropped. It wasn't a full trailer. It was just more of like, hey, let's show you how the animation looks. Let's show you what it's going to look like, especially if you've never grown up with them or you didn't know what they look like. But if you guys don't know the Addams Family, just in case, the Addams Family is based off of a TV show where they kind of focus on a ghoulish type of family. So think about, sitcoms back in the day with the Jeffersons, I
Love Lucy was the same period of time.
It's the same concept where they focus on a family, but it's just more of a... if Tim Burton decided to come up with a sitcom type of deal. And, of course, they have 2 live-action movies. They've had plenty of reiterations, but this is the newest one. This comes from Sony Animation. Unfortunately, the same studio behind the Emoji Movie, the Hotel Transylvania movies, and Spider-Verse. And it's like their resumes all over the place. But they want an Oscar, so I can't really say anything else. Because it's what you've done for me lately, and I always say that, and I hold true to that. So you know what?
Hopefully they're turning a corner, and Spider-Verse was.
Hopefully the Emoji Movie was the last stinker from them. But this one has the same kind of animation style as Hotel Transylvania, because that one deals with these mythical creatures, ghoulish legends with the werewolf and the Invisible Man and stuff. So it kind of has that flavor to it, and it's got a great cast. I mean, we have Charlize Theron as Morticia. We have Chloe Grace Moretz as Wednesday Addams, perfect casting, and you have Oscar Isaac as Gomez, the father. And it's like, why can't we just make this live action?
Yeah.
Finn Wolfhard's going to be playing Pugsley.
That's pretty perfect too.
Yeah, it's genius. And then my favorite one, Elsie Fisher is also in it as Parker Needler. And then my favorite one, because I always thought that he was also, speaking of impeccable comedic timing, Nick Kroll is amazing, hands down, and he does that show Big Mouth on Netflix, and he's dabbled in voice animation now. He's playing Uncle Fester.
That's pretty.
I love it.
Apt. Yeah,
I love it. Like so, to be honest with you, it didn't reveal much. It was just more of like, hey, we're coming this Halloween. It'll be great counter programming because the Joker comes out at the beginning of October. I think that will carry way through Halloween time. So
this will probably kill at the box office,
right? Yeah, I think even with something as crappy as the Emoji Movie, believe it or not, Sony still makes money with their animated properties, and so I think this one will do very well. I think the Hotel Transylvania crowd will definitely go see this, and I hope it brings in new people that have never even heard of the Addams Family. So it's got like this really great opportunity to get everyone across the board to go watch this. But
I'm not as familiar with the Addams Family. I've definitely watched it, but I didn't watch it with as much I didn't watch it as religiously as I watched the Munsters, and I would love to see what a modern studio did with the Munsters. I adore the Munsters. I think the Munsters is genius. I had so much fun with that. We own like 3 seasons of it, actually.
Right.
And
do you think with this type of voice casting that they have proposed, do you think they should have just done a live action instead?
Probably so. Although I don't know how well physically Charlize Theron would fit in that role as Morticia. Ava Green would have been perfect. I mean, just to think about the roles that she's had.
Especially with I didn't like the movie, but Dark Shadow.
Dark Shadow, right. And 300 Rise of an Empire,
right.
Which I think I was a bigger fan of that than you. I can't remember, but I loved her in that, and it was a great film.
I thought it was a fine sequel, okay. But yeah, she definitely brings that. It's not because she's
incredibly sexy and incredibly venomous in that movie,
right?
And I love that. And
it's not just because she worked with Tim Burton, but she has like that gothic structure. Yeah. It's weird. Like she looks super pale, but it works.
You put that kind of makeup on her face, and she fits perfectly. You don't have to do over the top makeup, which I think is sometimes what happens with Helena Bonham Carter. As much as good as she is,
right.
I don't think that she has that. We're talking about people's bone structure now, but she doesn't quite have that bone structure that suggests gothic. But Ava Green does. I think that if you put her in the black hair and the makeup, it would be perfect.
And Oscar Isaac is Gomez. Come on.
That's spot on casting. He could play any role that Raul Julia did, and Raul Julia was in the first 2.
If you kind of did the curl, or not the curls, but the kind of rose in Oscar Isaac hair, because I'm already picturing this, and put the little mustache on him, he would look just like him.
He would be a dead ringer for Raul Julia. Yeah. It's perfect. And
so I think it is kind of weird that
just make another Street Fighter and have him play Baron.
Right. I do think it's kind of weird that I kind of wish Sony would have just been like, hey, let's make this into live action and have it under their live action.
Yeah.
But I think it was because
maybe there's a playfulness they thought would be lost on live action. But then again, you had 2. Well, I much prefer Addams Family Values to the first one. I think the first live action Addams Family movie fine. I think that it had some limitations, but Values was nominated for Oscars, for instance, that the first one wasn't. Production design, I think, and costume design. I think it won, maybe won costume design. Can't remember, but I know that it was nominated for it. I think that but I think that Sony pulling off a movie as good as Addams Family Values, which is an excellent movie, that would have been really interesting to see them tackle something live action. But maybe they felt like the playfulness of the material and all of that would adhere better to animation. I'm not sure. I haven't watched the announcement thing. I don't know.
Well, the only fear I have with it being animation is that with the Addams Family, they're a kooky family, but they're not like fast-paced energy. The problem with doing like animation style,
where the Munsters were,
right, and doing it in animated style versus live action, and making it more to Hotel Transylvania does kind of worry me, because that is a very energetic franchise with its humor and its visual gags. So I don't know how this is going to translate.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Hotel Transylvania movies. I think that they have neat settings, and I think that they don't really do anything with them. And that's what I'm worried about.
Right.
And so
that could happen with this.
Yeah, it could. I'm thankful they didn't take this approach with the Munsters. I think that if you're gonna do a Munsters movie, I would love to see that just remain live action, because first I would love to see who they cast in all of the roles, and in any case, but about this, which is not the Munsters, I'm cautiously optimistic.
If this movie is successful, expect to hear a Munsters reboot, remake, whatever in the next
probably
month.
If they can prove that they took one ghoulish Halloween costumed family, but not Halloween costumed family, successful in an animation format, they're probably going to make it animation, and they'll probably take that on for sure.
Right. So I'm hoping for the best. And another movie that I'm pretty dubious about, and is really I don't know after watching this. The second trailer, technically the full-length trailer to Lion King dropped. We've covered the teaser before. I'm starting to think this hyper-realistic look to these animated movies is not working. Because when The Jungle Book came out, that was the first time we'd ever seen anything like that. I still kind of like it. I wasn't blown away by it. I was like, okay, fine, that was entertaining. When you see it in the form of The Lion King, it is strange. Yeah. It takes out all of the, I guess, beauty of hand-drawn animation. I know we're not supposed to compare. It's going to be its own thing, but it just looks ugly.
Well, it's honestly tough. I mean, I've only seen stills from this because people have been sharing a bunch of still comparisons between, for instance, they're walking across a log at night and they've compared, and it's all three of them, Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa, and they're dancing. Right. But it's at night. But of course, because it's 2D animation, the original movie didn't just shroud everything in darkness. It was set against the moon, sort of in an Amblin kind of way, and but it wasn't so dark. You could see the characters. It was conveying nighttime, but you could see the characters still. And the problem with doing something like this, here's the difference, I think, for right now, between this and The Jungle Book. A movie I really like. I like it more than Chase does. But the difference between that is that with Jungle Book, you had a human character at the center of it. So you could make the argument that the photorealistic animals are a little more fitting to that story because we're seeing it through the eyes of somebody who's interacting with anthropomorphic animals who can talk in English, right? Not anthropomorphic, but animalistic, but realistic animals that can talk in English. So there's a grounded realism in having a human character there. So you can make that argument. With this, you can't because there's no human characters. There's no reason that we should be watching what is essentially an animated movie. It's not even live action, and we shouldn't even call it live action from now on. There's a performative element to the people playing in the roles because they did motion capture a lot, but you don't have that human character grounding their existence within this world. So all we have are just extremely realistic versions of characters who were brought to life in such a in an animated way, and I mean that in the pun that it is, and also I just mean it in an admonishing way. You don't have that grounding element of a human, so now you're just looking at these extremely real-looking animals and seeing Pumbaa
talking and singing. It's weird.
And seeing Pumbaa, at least in the I've seen a picture of him with Timon on his back in this new one.
They briefly sing the song right before it cuts to black.
Okay. Lion Sleeps Tonight, right? Okay, yeah. So, because I heard that was used, I figured that that's what they were doing. So, yeah, I saw a picture of it, and they make Pumbaa look too much like a warthog.
Warthog, yeah.
And so you have the weird, creepy, sideways leaning or sideways pointing jaws, fangs, and looks slightly threatening, not like silly Pumbaa in the animated
That's something
movie.
you want to hug.
Yeah,
you're please get away from me.
Pumbaa's lovable. You're not supposed to look at him
Call
as
animal
a real,
control.
Yeah, exactly. You're not supposed to look at him as a real real warthog. And
right.
Then you have all of the lions are going to look alike because they're all animated alike. So we're going to be seeing Scar and basically just differentiating because he has a giant scar on his face. But whenever it gets to grown-sized Simba, it's not going to work as well because he's just going to look like every other one. And
I'm already thinking
and we're just going to see him the most, and that's barely a difference.
I'm already thinking about the scene with at the very beginning with Scar and Simba and everything. I'm thinking about that scene and how muddled and ugly it's going to look with all the movement, all the movement just running.
Well, all the movement of brown
versus brown and gray
animals.
Yeah, it's just.
I mean, they were able to make use of that color in animation because it's animation.
Right.
There's a richness and a vibrancy to hand-drawn animation that, unfortunately, making these. I mean, I don't know how real a lot of these sets are, or whether they're real locations or what.
I don't think they are.
I don't think they are either. They're probably not. I'm sure that they probably use real places for reference point, but still.
For like, if you guys don't know how like Favreau did the Jungle Book, he said that everything was made on a soundstage. That is true, but what Joel's referring to is kind of mapping, where like you take like footage or like a picture of like a real location, and you kind of animate it to fit into the scene.
Yeah, they probably went out and photographed a bunch of like jungles, literally, for that, and they probably did that the same here with deserts and canyons and desert canyons. And it's troubling, and I think that I'm even less excited for Aladdin than this. I think that this one there's some potential that they could capture some of the emotion of the story, which in some ways I think is inherent, but it's going to be a lot of visual noise, and I'm not looking forward to that aspect of it. And
what it boils down to is it just looks ugly, and it doesn't look appealing. It doesn't look like something I would want to sit through. It just looks really freaky with the songs coming out of their mouth, like Joel said, because they don't have that one human character to ground it.
Yeah. Well,
between that,
get ready for a review for us to review the
right. And so between that, Aladdin, and I didn't see Dumbo, but Joel didn't like it. I feel like Jungle Book might have been a one-hit wonder type of deal, and you should have never done it with
Pete's Dragon worked, but that was also very different because it wasn't a musical. There was
one animated thing.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, it was such a human story, and it was
more about the humans rather than the dragons.
Yeah,
so
and it was even better than Jungle Book, I thought. Great movie. So
right. Yeah. So it's just it's a weird era, man. But moving on to some other trailers that kind of slipped through the radar of the big releases of Lion King and Star Wars and stuff was a little film that I'm excited about because it's the directorial debut in a feature film environment of Amy Poehler. And it's Wine Country, and it's going to come out on Netflix, which will probably have some type of limited release as well. But I wanted to bring it up because, Amy Poehler is, been established in this industry for a while, and to see her directorial debut in feature form is kind of exciting. So this one is about, a group of longtime girlfriends who go to Napa for the weekend to celebrate her friend's 50th birthday, and that friend being Amy Poehler in the movie, and then, of course, tensions from their past boil over. We've seen this before and everything. It's going to be mainly, people that have had this lifelong friendship, and then I'm sure someone says something, they're just like, how could you? And then all this, these Pandora's boxes are going to be opened, and then people are just going to yell at each other. But I do like those type of movies because I have a group of friends that I've known since high school, and I'm sure we've done some stupid things in our past to where if someone brought it up now, I'm sure we would probably yell about it. And it's something we can all kind of relate to. It doesn't seem like she's going to try anything bold or ambitious for her first film. She just wants to get her feet wet and do a human story, and I really appreciate that. But it stars, Maya Rudolph, her, Tina Fey, Jason Schwartzman, I believe, and
isn't Rachel Dratch in it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank God for that. She was in Little this weekend. Yeah, but the trailer looks great. The humor just looks really natural, authentic. The relationships between all of them are authentic because they're all friends in real life, so that applies over to the screen. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. With Netflix movies, it's really kind of hard to gauge them because most of them are garbage. Joel and I have already had this conversation, but I primarily watch it for the TV shows. But there's some movies that kind of poke through that look interesting. But I think in terms of a directorial debut, I'm excited to see what she brings. Now, she has directed a couple episodes of Broad City, I believe 1 or 2 episodes of Parks, and I think another TV show. But this is her first feature debut. So, is this something that kind of interests you? I know that you and Brian, in particular, have seen movies based around a winery, like Sideways or something.
Yeah.
What do you think about what is so appealing about a wine setting?
I mean,
like
it's sort of the high society feeling, especially if you can't afford this.
Right.
Those. I don't drink, of course, so there's that. But
Joel just called me an alcoholic
yes,
on air because I enjoy beer every now and then.
Every now and then. No, but yeah, with Sideways, it's such a great movie. You haven't seen it, right?
No.
Okay, so the thing with that one was very much a character study because the character played by Paul Giamatti is trying to kind of find himself in a certain way, but it's not a find oneself journey movie so much because there's so many other characters too. And that was a great cast as well. Had Thomas Hayden Church, Virginia Madsen, Sandra Oh. And I'm sure that there were other people. It's been a while since I've seen it. Probably other people in the background. I think that if Polar's working in this vein, we're probably in for something pretty special. And yeah, I just think it's well, first of all, the relaxing weekend nature of something like a winery. And I've been to one.
They're very very beautiful.
They are very
locations.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It was part of another overall trip.
Mm-hmm.
There were other things involved in the trip, and it was a winery as a part of something else too. I can't remember which president's house, but it was some U.S. president's house. It was a long time ago, and I mean, we toured the winery. They're beautiful places. The way that they store the wine is really fascinating, and the way they make it.
It's an incredible process. If you guys have never seen how wine is made,
but I just want to be clear: it was a tour. We weren't at a wine tasting or whatever. We didn't have like some.
Oh, I do the wine tastings.
Oh, okay, yeah. My parents don't drink either. It was it was part of a bigger tour, so pretty cool. And it gives off the, you stay out there for a little bit, relax for a while. I can see how it would invite comedy to have a setting like this. Well,
there's a line in the trailer where Tina Fey said something to the degree of once people drink, it unlocks the truth type of deal. And so I think if you have a situation or an event that happened between a group of friends and they all try to suppress it, down the line, drinking some wine might open that up a bit. It might cause some tension. So,
and I can see how you could also get some comedy out of that too, especially with these actresses. I have a feeling that, I haven't watched the trailer, but I'm sure that Polar's not going for drama here. Knowing her roots and the cast that she's compiled, and it's a great cast. I would watch it on the basis of that.
I mean, I
her
think
friends from they went to Second City together. I think right. They're all Second City alums, and I'm sure that this was hardly a stretch for them to try to get together and get along. And,
This is not going to be some precious little PG-13 comedy. It is a rated R comedy. With lines like this from the trailer, I think someone was like, "Did you ever do Molly in college?" And this one of the friends was like, "Yeah, I did Molly in college." She didn't call me back the week after, or something like that. I was like, "This is going to be crazy." So,
that's pretty funny.
I actually like the cast, like the feel of it. So, great job for Netflix bagging that one. All right. So the next trailer is something that we actually both have seen.
Yes,
and I cannot believe that Luc Besson is ripping off Luc Besson. That is very weird. I don't know why he's ripping off himself, because he seems to do the same thing every single time. But the problem is they just kind of get blander and blander as the movies keep going. But this next one is called Anna, and it comes out June 21st, which is pretty dumb to go against all those movies. But
isn't that Toy Story 4 weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my god.
I mean, I get it now. I guess it's good opposite marketing, but
right. But typically, Luc Besson does female assassins. Nothing wrong with that. But it just seems like he's in a rut because he does the same thing over and over again. Here's what the plot is, which is pretty much all of his past 20 movies besides Valerian. That's the only different one. But this one is about Anna, who is this beautiful woman who can go into a room. Her beauty strikes, people. They're in awe. They're speechless. And then she has a secret that will unleash her strength and skill to become the world's most feared government assassins. That is exactly what IMDb says. I I care. To be honest with you, it doesn't. I don't think it looks good or bad. I care less. I'm gonna let you take it over.
Okay, yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's a awkwardly edited trailer.
Yeah, they primarily just show an action scene.
Yeah, but it's the single action scene.
Right.
Somebody was basically saying like this basically just looks like a repeat of Atomic Blonde and Red Sparrow, and those movies weren't very good. So I'm not super excited for this. I guess we'll see how it goes. But
like I've heard him in interviews, right? And like he's like, I love strong female leads and assassins stuff. It's like that's cool, but like you've done this, Lucy, Columbiana, like you've done all of these that have the same style. Yeah. Why don't you mix it up and do
more Valerians?
Right.
Because it wasn't,
take a risk.
I wasn't a huge fan of Valerian, but I think I liked it a little bit more than some of the other ones that you were talking about, and I think that there was a vision there that was really interesting. I liked Lucy, but because
you liked Lucy?
I liked Lucy.
I've heard a lot of negative things about it.
Okay, it was good. There's a sci-fi element to that one, big time. I thought that it was pretty good. It was okay. Basically, it was okay. Kind of a C+, I guess, B-, something like that.
It was funny when I was watching the in-game press tour. Scarlett Johansson was talking about the time that those dogs are going crazy back there. She was talking about the time that she was at the Oscars, and she said she was approached by Meryl Streep, and Meryl Streep was like, "Man, I really loved you in Lucy," and she was like, "Really?" And then she was like, still to this day, I still don't know what that movie's about. So I think
it's pretty incomprehensible, but it's a fun like visual thing, and has an energy that I think is.
It just what's really.
But this doesn't. I mean, it just seems to be like a carbon
looks lifeless.
Copy of that. Yeah,
like when you have an action franchise like John Wick. It injects so much creative passion into those action scenes, the story, and Keanu Reeves. It sells it as this, action movie that we've seen a million times, but we like it because there's style. There's no style to this trailer. Yeah. And I'm like, it looks boring.
It looks very typical of his style. So
I'm like, Luke, do something different, please. Maybe he's just maybe after the flop of Valerian, he just got so depressed. He's like, I'm gonna go back to what I normally do. Female assassin. It's like, well, could you put some passion and energy to it, please? Let's move on from that. Joel, this is your franchise. I would like you to introduce it, do the slow build-up, reveal the title of it, and you start with what you thought about the trailer.
All right, so this is the trailer for Star Wars Episode 9, and of course they revealed the title with it. I'm happy to report, or slightly confused to report, that it's called Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. This is a really interesting title for reasons that are entirely related, at least in my mind, to the final thing we hear in the trailer, other than the music, which is a laugh. And I could swear that laugh belongs to Mark Hamill. But I don't know. I mean, it sounds like his Joker laugh to me, and that's very interesting. Now, what am I talking about here? I don't know, because they didn't really reveal any of the plot. You don't get any sense of the plot here. All it is that it's an end to this particular trilogy. The title was in blue, kind of dark blue. The announcement of the title in the teaser is kind of ominous in a way because of how dark blue it is. And where the music's going, so we may be looking at quite a downbeat, kind of final chapter here.
It went from yellow, red, and to blue.
Yeah, and it may very well be that The Last Jedi is not the darkest movie in the series. It's been getting, increasingly darker, and obviously I'm stoked. I can't wait. We get images here of Rey doing an awesome thing with her lightsaber, doing this backflip kick thing to ward off a TIE fighter, and it's just, I can't wait. I think that it's visually stunning. It's J.J. Abrams back behind the camera, which I thought worked really well for Force Awakens, and I'm excited to see what he brings to it. I mean, there's not really much to say. It's very much a teaser,
It doesn't come out until December.
It doesn't even come out. Yeah, exactly. They're probably going to have another one
October, September.
Yeah, something like that. They usually wait a while. Yeah,
it'll be during a football game like usual.
Yeah, probably so. And so yeah, we'll have to talk about it more whenever there's another trailer. There's not really much to talk about here, unfortunately. I think that there's going to be a lot of people who try to make a lot of out of this.
Please don't.
Yeah, don't do that. There's going to be people talking about this trailer for like an hour and a half long podcast. I don't think that there's anything really that it gives us that's other than tantalizing. Like that's, and it certainly does that job. It does that job well. It's well edited. It's like the teasers for the others. The first kind of the April released teasers for the others. It captures a mood really well. I mean, I don't know if it perfectly stays that mood, but still, it's we see some good little moments of action. But we don't see any of we don't see the new character who's we watched part of we watched almost all of the live stream. And there's a new actress, Naomi Ackie, who's playing somebody named Jana, and we don't know who that is because we haven't even seen her in the trailer. There's no details on that. I'm sure that they'll maybe release a few more things at D23. I can imagine that they're going to do that.
Is this the one they think it's Lando's daughter?
Yeah, there's like a rumor going around, and it's essentially because they're both black. But who knows? I mean, and she kind of gave this cagey answer during the celebration that basically indicates it probably is.
Yeah, it probably is.
I mean, but of course we don't know.
She was laughing pretty aggressively, as in like nervous laughter. Like,
yeah.
Yes, Landon's daughter.
Yes, yeah. So we'll see. It's Star Wars. I'm excited. I'm more excited than Chase. That's
whoa! That's hold on. Let me jump in here, because you know that The Last Jedi is my favorite one.
Yeah, right.
So like, I'm looking forward to this one.
Oh, I know, but no one in the entire universe at all.
If you want to talk about out of both of us, yes, you obviously will love it more. And I'm kind of with you. I love the teaser. It reminded me of the teaser I saw for The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, where it's going to balance both of like that fun kind of like adventure feel of Force Awakens, but it looks like it's going to have some of those dark moments that were kind of flourishing throughout The Last Jedi, which is great. I love the balance of the two.
And they've taken this new series, this new trilogy to some dark places. I mean,
I love it.
Han Solo's death, the Luke's whatever he does at the end of Last Jedi was some of the boldest storytelling involving a hero character I've seen in a while. That's why I love that movie more and more.
Do you not think the laugh at the end was possibly Palpatine, since he did come out after the first viewing of the trailer and said, "Roll it again"? You don't think that was him laughing?
I think that would. I as a Star Wars fan would think that was a little lazy to bring him back.
I actually think
it was mainly to me because it sounded exactly like the laugh of Hamill's Joker, right? And the title, "The Rise of Skywalker,"
but that could be alluding to Rey. It could be alluding to.
You could twist it to something darker too, and I think that. I'm not trying to say that he's going to turn bad.
It could be the rise of Kylo Ren.
It could be, yeah, and you never know.
The New Order and everything. Like you and I discussed that. Like that it could be alluding to him.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't know.
There's a lot of places. I mean, Disney's so good at marketing these days with this and in-game revealing nothing about itself. And
so I have a question to ask you, because a lot of people are kind of bringing this up on Twitter as we were getting ready to record. Do you think Kathleen Kennedy was kind of taken back by the fan reaction for The Last Jedi, and do you think that she retconned a lot of the story of The Last Jedi to appease kind of more of like go back to like The Force Awakens or even the older films, just to kind of course correct? Do you think she did that?
I can see how maybe people might think that because of J.J. Abrams' involvement being hired back. I don't know about the nuts and bolts of that decision. I don't know why they didn't go from, because they did this with the original trilogy. It wasn't always George Lucas. It was 3 different directors.
Correct.
And they could have easily gone back to George Lucas, considering he was nominated for Best Director twice, once before Star Wars, once for Star Wars. they could have done Irving Kershner for the second one and then gone back to Lucas, but they went to Richard Marquand, and he didn't do much after that. So I don't know about the nuts and bolts of stuff like that. I don't know why they went with him and not with a third director.
Mm-hmm. Because they originally had Abrams, Johnson, and Trevorrow as their three.
Yeah, and then with Trevorrow,
it did not work out.
Yeah, stuff didn't really work out there. Book of Henry kind of came out and
a little derailed that a
little bit. Yeah, I have a feeling that had to have played a part in it somehow.
I don't think you should ever course correct because of fan disapproval.
Right,
that is so stupid.
And there's definitely no proof because we just don't know how this movie is.
Right,
that they've done that. I mean,
it really
the
depends
on
the
nature
that
of it.
Is because of the title, The Rise of Skywalker, and I particularly am not like 100% with that. I'm like maybe 50 or 60% of it. I still love the teaser, but if you're the CEO or the president of any company, it's fine to take in like customer reviews or whatever, but don't take it to heart. Like, can you imagine if Kevin Feige had to course correct every single Marvel movie because someone disapproved of a certain character or the way the story went?
And it was interesting. It was like I feel like he slipped this in as kind of a hey hint. Rian Johnson was saying that he didn't mind recently. I think I haven't really read into this. I don't know if it was an actual quote, but whatever. I've seen reports that he basically said that he didn't mind if J.J. Abrams retconned some of the events from Last Jedi for this new one. But then somewhere near the beginning of when I popped in, which was about 10, 15 minutes into the celebration thing, he said that he loved what Rian Johnson did.
I love what he did too. And
and so I think that was a specifically pointed comment about him saying, "I'm not retconning anything, so get used to it." Well, because he loved what Johnson did.
Well, I think people need to realize Rian Johnson wrote the script for The Last Jedi. You cannot shoot anything in any movie business without the approval of the higher-ups.
Yeah.
That means Kathleen Kennedy had to approve that. So she's like, this is the route, this is the direction I want the story to go.
Yeah, which, hey, I mean...
So go with it.
And it was
Be
bolder
bold.
And riskier.
Do it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, do not course correct because a group of angry fans are like, this isn't my Star Wars. It's like, no, you had a vision. Stick to it.
Yeah.
We may not like the end result, but I appreciate you sticking to your vision.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
Yeah. It was, whatever the case, it was a great little trailer. So what would your favorite trailer have been this week?
Ooh,
the one that I definitely prefer of the two I saw, obviously, is Star Trek, Star Wars.
So out of the ones that I have seen, I love the Star Wars teaser, but I'm kind of excited for the Stuber trailer.
Yeah.
Just because I haven't really felt like we've gotten a good like action comedy in a long time, so I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, maybe it'll be along the lines of something like Baby Driver.
Right.
Maybe less Edgar Wrighty, of course. There's
right.
only one Edgar Wright, but yeah, it certainly sounds great. All right, guys. So basically, I'm just going to be talking about one thing with the news this week because it's enough to talk about. It's a lot of stuff. Disney Plus has just kind of released their full plan. The pricing plan is basically going to be $6.99 a month or $69.99 a year. Really good. It's obviously going to go up from there. That's how these work. Netflix has gone up almost.
The more content you add, the higher the price goes.
Exactly. And so, but right now, really, really very affordable, even for.
It's not bad.
Yeah, even for people who might be financially struggling. Not struggling. I guess that's wrong because I don't know. There's different levels to wealth and stuff, but.
Well, because these are primarily for families.
Yeah.
Disney Plus.
And so it'll be great. So they've announced some of their programming, and there's the big draw is the live action series they've got in the works. Of course, the other draw. I'm not going to talk about a bunch. This is not the focus of this, but of course, all the stuff that they're bringing back from their old library. They're starting out with I think like 400 movies or something at the point when it comes. That's how many years are going to be available from their old library, and then there's going to be a series of original movies and stuff that come out too. We'll get into those. But the first thing that I want to talk about is the live action series. So, starting off with kind of a soft lob, the High School Musical, the series. Clunky title, whatever. I don't particularly personally care about this. I wasn't a High School Musical guy. It was a little bit past my time, and I don't want to sound like an old fogey. It was definitely back in like 2006.
It was, though, because the trilogy came out when we were in high school bleeding into college.
Yeah. And so, basically, with stuff like that, generally speaking, I mean, it was high school, but it was technically for a slightly younger audience who were looking forward to high school. So it's not my thing. I know that it's very popular. I have nothing against it. I just have never watched it. I've heard that it's a lot of fun. So people who are slightly younger than us or just have enjoyed this, the trilogy of movies, then that's for you. The big one. This is the one that I'm going to be watching season by season. And I don't know if they're going to do the same thing that Netflix did and release all of the season at once. But whatever the case, it's The Mandalorian, which is the first ever live-action Star Wars series. I'm absolutely in the tank on this. I'm definitely signing up for this at this price, by the way. This is going to be invaluable in terms of, one, kind of a Disney viewing history, and also for this series and some of the Marvel series I'm going to get to.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I know that Chase is even more excited for those.
Joel's all about The Mandalorian. Yeah. I'm all about one. I like all the Marvel shows, but there's one specific one I'm just aching to watch.
So I can't wait. This is a great cast. Pedro Pascal, really, really great talent. Gina Carano, that's fun. Carl Weathers, we haven't seen him in a new movie in a long time. He's, of course, from Predator and other stuff like that. Giancarlo Esposito, who is I just lost his name. He's from Breaking Bad.
Gus?
Yeah, Gus.
Yes.
Gus. I knew it started with a G. I haven't watched Breaking Bad in a while, guys. Nick Nolte, which is going to be interesting to see him in a Star Wars. Yeah, exactly. We're going to have to put on subtitles for him.
Right.
And Werner Herzog, which is so fun. It's such fun casting. I can't wait to see what he does. I know that he's apparently quite a big Star Wars fan. So I'm excited for this. There's a couple of other people here on the list. Emily Swallow, Omid Abtahi. I'm sure that those are going to be up and comers for us at least. And it's set, after the fall of the Empire, before the emergence of the First Order. So before Force Awakens and after Return of the Jedi. So it follows a lone gunfighter in the outer reaches of the galaxy, far from the authority of the New Republic. It's catnip for me. I'm going to eat this thing up every week or binge it or whatever they do. I don't know how they're going to do that.
I think they're going to release them all at once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hulu does like once
the weekly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, they might follow that model. I doubt it though. I feel like they're probably going to follow the Netflix model so that people can kind of be, inundated because they're going to be giving us.
Yeah.
They're going to be giving us all these other series too. They probably want people to just watch them. So the next one is another kind of soft lob, but this sounds pretty interesting. It's called Diary of a Female President. And it's told from the narration of a diary, of course. And it follows a 12-year-old Cuban-American girl who is starting on a journey to be the first or the future president of the United States. It's going to be produced by Gina Rodriguez. And yeah, I mean, it sounds fun. We should be able to see how that does. It might be interesting to see something play. I don't know if it's going to be single camera, but it not single camera. Is it single camera? The one with the audience is that multi-camera?
Multi-camera.
Multi-camera. I always confuse the two for some reason. I don't know. It could play like a multi-camera thing, like a sitcom, or it could be in the style of something like Lizzie McGuire. We'll see. I'm sure that it's going to be very much for families,
right?
For girls. So then we get into one more Star Wars thing. I took a break. One more Star Wars thing because there's a Cassian Andor series. Now, who is Cassian Andor? He was the character played by Diego Luna in Rogue One. And interesting character. You can never quite place him as an archetype within the universe, and I thought that was really interesting. And so it's going to be a spy thriller following his character, and Diego Luna is going to play him. again. So for this entire thing, it's going to be showrun by Stephen Schiff of The Americans, which I've seen episodes on and off of. Really, I know it's really popular, so that's pretty cool. And then the final one before we get to the Marvel shows, this is this is interesting. I actually have a feeling that this might have been misplaced in this article. I think it's probably an animated series, and they just put the title below the wrong thing. But Forky asks a question. Now, what is this? Forky is a character that's going to appear in Toy Story 4. Now, I recently accidentally saw the trailer for Toy Story 4, so I get a little bit of context into who this guy is. He's one created by the character, what's her name? Ellie? I think Ellie, yeah. In Toy Story 4, the little girl who at the end of Toy Story 3 gets the toys and now has grown up at least just a little bit, right? So now she's made a toy, and that gives it consciousness. And so part of the story of Toy Story 4 is going to be this makeshift toy's existential crisis of what is he. And now there's going to be a show, and I actually have a feeling that this is going to be at least slightly satirical, but it doesn't describe it as that. I'm just going to read the entry. So Forky from Disney and Pixar's Toy Story 4 is a craft project created from trash. So he has important questions about how the world works, such as what is love, what is time, and of course the deepest question of all, what is cheese? He explores all these questions and more in a series of 10 shorts. I mean, it sounds so funny to me, and I have to feel like there's going to be a satirical angle of this fork thing that's asking a bunch of existential questions. That'll be fun. But we're going to get into these series. Okay, we're going to get into the live action series. I have a feeling that the one that Chase is excited for, we're going to get to a little bit later. But for right now, quickly, kind of just to talk about these, there's going to be a Loki series. That was announced a long time ago.
That was one of the first ones.
Yeah, and that's going to be more in 2021 era. Year 2, as they're calling it, which is, it's starting in November, so probably after November of 2020 is when that's going to start. And then you got WandaVision. That's what it's going to be called. And it's about Wanda, Maximoff, and Vision. And it's going to be starring Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. Now, quick note for everybody. Everybody's probably wondering, wait a minute. How are they just going to drop everything and do an entire series? These are limited. They're going to be probably one season and
it's
done.
It's a one-and-done situation.
And, I mean, like with Forky, 10 shorts, I can imagine that these are going to be like probably 10 episodes that may be long. I have a feeling that Disney's going to go the route of Netflix originals. No commercial little break things. They don't have to do that because they probably won't have any sort of breaks in anything they do. So that's going to be interesting. And then the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you're going to have, again, Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Stan. They're returning as the Falcon, Winter Soldier. It's going to be fun. I don't see it on this list, but of course there's also the possibility of a Hawkeye series, which will be really cool. I like Hawkeye a lot. I think he's an interesting character. So you got Jeremy Renner potentially returning for that. So of course he's been cagey about that in his answers, but in any case, so there's that. I'll just get Chase's reaction real quick to all of these. What do you think about them so far?
Yeah, I think it's great to kind of focus on characters that will probably die in Endgame, to have their own kind of like limited series to kind of do not only a send-off, but also kind of explore them a little bit more. I think it's actually genius to do a Hawkeye one, because we're going to see the most radical transformation of that character in Endgame when he becomes Ronin. It's the biggest thing character-wise that we've ever seen from him besides having a family. So it'd be genius to have something like that right after Endgame, because it's fresh in your mind. You're like, okay, I want to see that now. Everyone loves Loki. Everyone loves the relationship of Scarlet Witch and Vision, and then the back and forth of Bucky and Falcon. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I really hope they stick to their word and making it limited, a one-and-done thing, 10, 13 episodes tops, and then never touch it again. Yeah. Because if they start coming back and doing all these seasons, I feel like
they're gonna shoot themselves in the foot, like they've done. Marvel has done with all these shows that they're canceling now.
Right.
Luke Cage, The Defenders, Jessica Jones, all of that, and it's because people don't want a serialized version of this, constantly moving, there's only so many stories. That's why. In the long run, there's a lot of comic books out there, but there's a lot of evolving storylines. Right. And so I think that if you stick with, you might have a little comic series about some particular character, but they're gonna throw in a bunch of other ones too for you to read that are about other characters and other team ups and
if Kevin Feige is running this division of Disney Plus, I don't think he's going to go down that route in terms of making more than what he's going to order.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't seem like the type of guy to me that's going to milk this.
Right.
Bob Iger does, but I don't think Kevin Feige does. So I'm hoping he can convince Bob to not do that, because Iger's going to be like, I want like 20 seasons and I want all the money. Because that's just the way he works. He's the only man to ever walk into George Lucas's office, slap a contract on his desk and go, I'm going to buy Star Wars from you. And he's just like, no, I don't want to do that. He's like, security, please leave my office. I think focusing on these characters, I think will make for a great show. And if you want to look at it from an acting perspective, Tom Hiddleston is fantastic as Loki. Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch, and then Paul Bettany as Vision, wonderful. And then you have Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie. All these actors have lived in these roles for so long now that if they wanted to do a series, I'm completely fine with it, because a lot of actors and actresses don't commit 100% to projects. Sometimes they don't commit to superhero films or roles or whatever, and so I'm glad to know that we've already seen them established in a universe to where if they were brought over to television, they would still give 110%, and I'm totally down for it.
And it's good, and it's also a good, it's a good sign that actors who've been in these roles for much longer than others, because we haven't seen a lot of Elizabeth Olsen or Paul Bettany in their roles physically.
I think the longest one we've seen is Loki and Hawkeye, because they both appeared in Thor for the first time.
Yeah.
So that was the third movie. Yeah.
So it's good that they clearly haven't run out of energy in terms of going back into these characters. It might help.
Because if they were tired of it, they would have not. They won't sign on to this.
Yeah.
But the fact they are coming back for what is arguably longer filming wise than a movie is pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome. And you have with Loki, he hasn't been in it much. And much less than Hawkeye has. I think maybe they might be a little bit equal in terms of that. But I doubt that you'd ever get, and I'm assuming that probably at some point there might have been talks about this, a Black Widow series, because Scarlett Johansson's been so consistently. It might be that she just wanted to do the movie and that was it.
Right.
So you can see these other actors are like, oh sure, I'll do that, and it's pretty great. So. All right, getting into the animated series now.
Well, I mean, what's that last Marvel show?
There's we're getting to that.
Oh, okay.
So there's some animated series coming to Disney Plus.
I was just making sure you didn't forget.
Yeah, no, but it's an animated series, so I needed to cover it in here. So, first animated series I want to quickly discuss. I'm a bad Star Wars fan. I have not really watched Star Wars: The Clone Wars. I've watched some of Rebels, but I was deeply involved in middle school and early high school.
Hey Joel, guess what? You get to watch it on Disney Plus.
Exactly. And that's the kind of the nice thing, is that whenever this gets started, I probably won't immediately start watching this new Star Wars: The Clone Wars season that's coming out. They're going to do 12 all new episodes, and they're going to surround Anakin, Obi-Wan, Padme. So I'm really excited about that. And then, so let's move into what Chase is truly, truly looking forward to. And it's the first animated series from Marvel, and it's called What If? Now, this might be familiar to comics followers. I had never heard of it. I will.
Neither have I.
Yeah. But there was a series of comics in which they would explore a pivotal moment in the Marvel universe, and in this case, it's actually going to be the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's pretty cool. It's they're not just taking moments from the comics, and they're going to twist it on its head. So they're going to take that into new territory. And the first episode that they can talk about is going to be exploring what would happen if Peggy Carter had been injected with the super soldier serum rather than Steve Rogers. This is really cool because it's flipping the good boy kind of archetype that is Steve Rogers and going over to who was just his love interest before.
Right.
So it's instantly complicating a relationship there. It's instantly complicating a character because there's going to be just a different, by virtue of it being gender flip, there's going to just be a different kind of energy to how this hero works.
Is Steve going to stay skinny? Is he going to bulk up because he needs to build up his confidence? How is she going to react to it?
And how is Peggy as Captain America? I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how.
Does she even go by the name Captain America? Does she go by something else? Are
they going to take a satirical approach to this? This would be cool. I was just thinking about this. What if they just replay the plots of the first two Captain America standalone movies? You can't really do the third one because it's a whole other thing.
So would you say maybe the energy of maybe a Deadpool light? Almost
something like that without the fourth wall breaking. I can imagine, and it's animated. But it's a really interesting idea to bring this to the series because I think that it was a stroke of genius to have something explore alternate timelines like this. I just can't wait to see what they do. What if Iron Man? What if Tony Stark becomes Iron Man but doesn't give up his weapons of war manufacturing? Something like that I can imagine is what they're going to do. How does that shape what Iron Man is seen as in the public eye? How does it shape the war front? There's a lot of complex stuff even within animation that they can explore in this. And
what if T'Challa's father never died in that building?
Right. How would he be as kind of, maybe he still takes on the mantle of
would
Black
Eric
Panther.
Killmonger still try to go after his dad? There's possibilities are endless. I love it.
Yeah, and it's great, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see.
Now, Joel, the most important episode of that entire series is what if Nick Fury had his right eye scratched out, not his left eye? Would the butterfly effect just affect everybody? What would happen?
He would no longer want to talk with Stoney about the Avengers initiative.
Right. He's just I'm going to go in an apartment, just drink myself. Just.
All right. He would join up with this guy named Vincent, and they would go around. I'm just kidding. Okay. So, yes, I just looped in a Pulp Fiction joke. I'm so sorry, guys. Actually, I'm not sorry. All right. So some of these others, I'm just going to quickly kind of look through. There's Lamp Life, which follows Bo Peep from Toy Story 4. So we get a lot of Toy Story ancillary characters in movies,
which
or
leads
in shows.
me to believe that maybe the fourth one might be the final movie.
Yeah, I can see how that would be.
And if they wanted to do more stories with individual characters, maybe specific groups within the gang, if you will, I think it'll go on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and then there's Monsters at Work, which is a sequel series to Monsters Inc., but it's actually not following Mike or Sully. It's following another character, Tyler Tuskmon, who's a young mechanic, and he's working at the team. It's going to include Billy Crystal and John Goodman.
Right, because they are set to come back.
Right, they're set to come back, but I think that the main person here is Ben Feldman, who's going to be voicing Tyler. You also have this great cast coming into this series for the first time, Kelly Marie Tran, which is really cool. Henry Winkler, which...
I love
holy crap.
He's on a roll right now.
Yeah, Alana Ubach. This is a great, great cast. And, of course, you have original people like John Ratzenberger, Bob Peterson, Jennifer Tilly. Great.
I think they're gonna bring back in some way, shape, or form the Boo storyline.
Yeah, they could easily do that. In fact, I don't know. Maybe Kelly Marie Tran is Boo.
That's not bad.
You never know, but it's 6 months after the event, so I don't know about that. In any case, they could still have Boo factor in.
Regardless, it's a great idea.
And then you also have a series of Pixar Animation Studio short films, which Pixar shorts are almost
they're iconic.
Always great. Yeah, I mean, there's some that are better than others, but they're always
Correct.
really creative. Visually, and they're going to be incorporating a lot of these Spark Shorts. It's going to be their studio short film series. So all of the stuff that's probably going to be nominated at the Oscars, everything is going to be going to that.
Yeah.
And then playing in front of movies and theaters, I assume as well, so that they can get qualify. So then I'm going to just run through these. I may not even ask Chase what he thinks of it, but there's going to be a lot of documentary and unscripted series here, live specials. There's one from producer Kristen Bell, which is called Encore, and it's about former castmates of a high school musical coming together to recreate. It's going to be some of their musicals. It's going to it's going to be a reality series about them bringing together like performances from like Sound of Music and Beauty and the Beast and Annie and stuff like that.
I'm so down for that.
Yeah, that's really cool. There's another Walt Disney Imagineering documentary that chronicles all of the history, the 65-year history. That's really cool because I love Imagineering. That's one thing one of the first things that I wanted to do whenever I went to Disney World a couple years ago was go in and do that little circular thing where you go around and you learn about the different. I love it. It's fascinating to me, the steps that they've taken. I'm gonna get to this next one last. So it's not my next one. All right, so this is neat because it gives us time to spend some time with Jeff Goldblum, and it's called The World According to Jeff Goldblum. And it's just
that is a big pile of dino,
and it's just going to be surrounding something that we all love. This is I'm reading here: sneakers, ice cream, and he just kind of pulls at a thread and opens the world a little bit.
I still can't believe his character is one of the most powerful in the MCU.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just bring him in to beat Thanos.
Oh my god, the Grand Master defeats
he literally.
Thanos.
I would think just to go off on a tangent here into theory world. I have a feeling that with Snap, people like Ego, if he was still alive, and people like the Grandmaster, who are, I think, pretty much like equal power level,
right,
would probably be not. They would probably be immune from the snap.
I think they would too.
Because I don't think that they're life forms. I think that there's something way above that. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking, and that's why I'm just thinking get him in. He can annoy Thanos to death. Now then, I'm loving the sounds of all of these so far. There's one that doesn't seem. It seems kind of weird. Maybe they're just going to do this for future Disney animation, but Into the Unknown, Making Frozen 2. It's going to be just a documentary about about making Frozen 2. It may be that what they do is for the Disney in-house. They've chosen Frozen 2. They haven't chosen anything else. I don't know if this would also be true about Pixar, but maybe they're going to take a Disney in-house animation movie and have a documentary about the concept.
I mean, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, not a bad idea at all. I mean, it kind of replaces the making of documentaries on a Blu-ray or whatever.
Right.
You could just
have it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, I mean, you still have to buy a Blu-ray in order to get it. Right. So you're paying for a service. They're still going to make their money off of something like that. Cinema Relics. This is really neat. It's going to be exploring a lot of the props and costumes of Disney movies. Pirates of the Caribbean, Mary Poppins, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Muppet Movie, all of that. So, pretty cool. And I think it's through specific people who have found a lot of... the craftspeople, the actors who interacted with them. It's going to be a lot of interviews. That's really neat. That's something that I'd be into. They're going to be looking at Animal Kingdom. They're going to be having an anthological documentary series on the kind of Marvel's legacy called Marvel's 616 about all the different things. They're going to have this series called Reconnect, which is very un-Disney-like compared to the other stuff, but they're going to find a family and completely disconnect them from any sort of devices or the modern modern world, and they're going to put them out somewhere and have them just kind of live in a secluded place and see how they cope. Pretty interesting. Disney used to have that with kids. I think it was called like Bug Camp or something like that. That was a very short-lived show, but I watched it religiously. I love that show, and should be interesting to see that happen. And there's some others here. I'm not going to go through all of them, getting into more esoteric places. But there is one that I want to ask Chase about, and it's Marvel related. And it's called Marvel's Hero Project. I'm going to read this. The series, produced by Marvel New Media in partnership with Maggie Vision Productions, reveals the remarkable positive change several young heroes are making in their own communities. These young heroes have dedicated their lives to selfless acts of bravery and kindness, and now Marvel celebrates them as the true superheroes they are. So it's basically just shining a light on kind of real-life heroes, and it's interesting that it's Marvel doing this and kind of taking a grounded approach. What do you think about something like that being kind of potentially ongoing? Because they don't say that it's going to be limited.
So is it like a docu-series? They're going to focus on...
I mean,
okay.
I assume it's saying that it's real life.
Okay.
So...
Like just real-life heroes that we've kind of heard about in the news stories and stuff?
Yeah, shining light on people who are helping their community.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you hate that, then you must hate puppies. Like, I like, how could you read a story like that and go, yeah, it's not for me? I mean, that seems like... something that Marvel would do, and kind of give it back to the community a little bit and be like, hey, let's focus on actual superheroes out there that do, day-to-day activities that we just don't even know about.
Should be very sweet.
Right.
And then there's a handful of original movies they've already got planned coming out.
Joel, I don't really care what you say, because as long as they put, like, Brink... Smart House, Under Wraps, all those movies from our childhood, I could care less about new ones. I want the old ones.
I do wonder if they're going to do that.
They have to.
At some point.
I love those movies.
Yeah, all the Disney Channel original movies, the DComs.
Yeah.
From our era of...
The Luck of the Irish, 13th year.
Yeah,
come on.
Man. Smart House.
The Lizzie McGuire movie.
The Lizzie McGuire movie. Well, that's not Disney Channel original, but
it'll be on there, though.
It'll probably be on there. I'm pretty sure that was already announced, actually. I hope that they put all of Lizzie McGuire on there, because that would be awesome. All of even Stevens. I know that they've already got That's So Raven. They've already got That's So Raven queued up. That'll be immediately available. But they didn't list Lizzie McGuire. I don't know if. They only listed some of them. Hopefully, that means all of them are on there.
If you thought you were
giant server for this,
you were going to binge Boy Meets World one season in a day, I'm going to binge watch Liz McGuire and Even Stevens within a weekend, the whole thing.
Oh yeah, it's only like 65 episodes each or whatever.
I love it.
It's great. Yeah.
Ooh, the Proud Family too.
Yeah,
I like the Proud Family a lot.
I love the Proud Family. It's a great show. But yeah, so they got some original movies here. Lady and the Tramp, of course, live action-ish remake with Tessa Thompson and Justin Theroux.
We discussed that.
Yeah,
I forgot it was going to be
a long time ago that they announced that. Noelle, about Nick Kringle and his younger sister Noelle, played by Anna Kendrick. Nick's played by Bill Hader. It's also got Billy Eichner, Julie Haggerty, Shirley MacLaine. Julie Haggerty's not a name I've heard in a while. She's from Airplane. And Phineas from Ferb movie, whatever. My nephews would be delighted by that. It's fairly popular. Stargirl. I don't know what that is. Let's see. Timmy Failure and Togo. Togo is an Alaskan adventure survival movie, kind of in the vein of their movies that they used to make, like oh gosh, was that Disney? I can't remember if Wild America was Disney or not. I think that was Warner Brothers.
I think it was Warner Brothers.
But anyway, they've done various survival movies back in the 80s when they were kind of struggling to figure out what to do in terms of theatrical releases. This was before the period of time when they realized, we can bring back animation and musical and put them together, and made The Little Mermaid. Back before they did that, and between that time, they did a lot of like survival stuff, and that should be interesting. So I am going to just talk about a little bit about some of the library that they're going to have. Of course, the first movies that are going to be in streaming from their new releases are going to include stuff like Captain Marvel, Dumbo, Avengers Endgame, everything up to Star Wars Episode 9, including Maleficent and The Lion King and all that. Of course, those are going to pretty much very soon after their physical releases, within a few weeks, I think, are going to go up on the streaming service, just like they have been doing within, I think, 3 months on Netflix. Of course, they're pulling all of that from Netflix. And then they're going to have a lot of the library highlights, including stuff like 101 Dalmatians. Free Solo, of course, is National Geographic, really great rock climbing documentary. National Geographic has been under the Disney umbrella for a while, and now all of that stuff's coming to Disney Plus. It's going to be in its own category. You get a lot of now unfindable Disney movies that kind of disappeared on DVD. Stuff like Fun and Fancy Free, pretty much any of the platinum editions of any of the Renaissance or Golden Era movies, from Aladdin to what have you, the original. Those are all being added on, but so are Steamboat Willie, the Three Caballeros, and they're going to have various Marvel movies. They're going to have Tron. So, and then obviously, stuff like television series. They've already announced Kim Possible is coming. Boy Meets World, a bunch of Marvel's animated series like Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man, all the Mickey and the Roadster Racer stuff for younger kids. That's really popular. Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars already coming back. That's So Raven. Simpsons is now under the Disney umbrella. They're going to stream that. I don't know if they're going to make any new ones. I don't know what happens there, but
they just announced it on Twitter with like a little animated thing where they're like, "Yeah, Simpsons will be all in Disney Plus." I'm just like, "Oh yeah, I keep forgetting they own that now."
Yeah, that's quite the property to get. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in any case, I'm going to let you talk about this for a little bit, and I'm just going to. So what are your thoughts about all of this?
Yeah, so with the Disney Plus thing, I do think it is. I think it's really good for families. I think it's good for people like Joel and myself who like the Star Wars things and the Marvel things, and of course we grew up with the old school type of Disney movies. We grew up with the Disney Channel shows. Like, this is going to be a monster of a service. And I don't think the $7 amount's going to last long because, the more content they produce, they're going to have to up their, price a little bit. So it might go up to around Netflix level to like $10, $12, but I think people will still pay for it. I was a little dubious on the streaming service as a whole. I got to be honest with you. But, with all the new stuff they got coming, with the Marvel stuff, some movies, Star Wars, and then have all their catalogs like in there, and from stuff from the 90s and even the 40s, 30s, 50s, like just everything. I think it's a pretty good deal. I will probably get it. As Joel and I were discussing earlier, the 3 services I'm probably just going to end up having for the rest of existence, probably, unless they come up with something new, is probably HBO, Disney Plus, and then the Criterion Channel. I think those were the 3 that we discussed. And so I think from the list that you mentioned, the price, quote unquote, as of now, it's not bad. Yeah. And I think I have been suckered. I will buy into it. So I'm looking forward to what they accomplish. What I'm really curious about when it comes out, if Netflix's numbers will dip, because a lot of families have Netflix for the kids section.
Yeah,
I do think
I've looked through that family section because I have nephews and nieces who come over and watch.
For our eyes, it's all like kid stuff, baby stuff.
Right.
But
once the Disney stuff disappears, man, it's gonna take a hit. And
right.
I mean, they're already in debt. I just feel like it's gonna be near the end for them.
I don't think they're gonna lose half.
Unless they just go back to DVD, rental services, which they could probably do that just as easily. But are the people who sign up for it now going to care about that service?
Right. And I don't think it's half, but I would say a good third. And this is a lot of people. A good third of Netflix subscribers are probably families.
Yeah.
And that's roughly 30 to 40 million people whose accounts would just go away like that. Like Thanos has snapped them away type of deal. So I don't know, man. Disney's going to rock the boat with theirs, and Hulu and Netflix will take a hit for sure, but I think Netflix will suffer the most.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all of that shakes up. It's the market, it's capitalism. Something's going to be pushed out at some point. So, there you go. All right, folks, that's it. We have one more thing to discuss, but other than that, we're about to start our review of Hellboy. One more thing, though. I'm just going to talk about one bit of casting because it doesn't really seem like much that was significant happened in the last couple of weeks. It really happened the couple of weeks before that when we were gone because of our luck. But Mark Hamill was cast to voice Chucky in the new Child's Play. I think that this is really inspired. I'm not, as familiar with Child's Play as you are. I've seen the original a long time ago. I'll be revisiting that and probably watching the at least maybe one or two of the sequels. I don't know. I may just do the original, but certainly inspired considering, he's already kind of established himself as a good, I don't want to call it a horror voice, but he's played a dastardly foe in terms of the Joker. He's voiced some villains on video games and stuff before too. He's actually an extremely prolific voice actor. He's not just Luke Skywalker. He's made a nice living for himself in the past 15 years. I think he started doing it in the early 2000s after wanting to come back in, but maybe not being and wanting to. I think he's voiced this. He wasn't wanting to be in so much that was live action because he felt like it would draw way too much attention to his presence as being so recognizable as that one role that he did that made him so much money. He got into voice work and he landed himself the role of the Joker in all of this Batman stuff. And it's really impressive. His voice work in that is, you don't listen to him and think Luke Skywalker. No. Because it's such a different tenor of voice. It's a different kind of character. Everything, he twists it into this kind of pseudo kind of mix between Chicago, Boston, and English accents. It's really interesting what he does with that voice. And
his Joker voice gets more deranged as the years go on because he also voiced the Joker in like the Arkham Asylum games.
Yeah. Which is a lot more twisted than the animated stuff. He was able to,
but if it's the character though, because
it's a little more R-rated, if you will.
Right, it's more disheveled.
So for him to voice something like Chucky and take over from Brad Dourif, I mean, if I would technically want Brad Dourif to keep voicing him, but if they're gonna pick somebody else who can have that twisted kind of slippery voice and all that, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Well, Brad Dourif still voices. I mean, because they've had two straight to DVD movies. I own all 8 of them. It is very fascinating to see the shift that franchise has taken because in the first 3, I would implore you to watch the first one and maybe the 4th or 5th one just so you can see the slasher concept come to life and the comedy.
4th one is Bride of Chucky, right? And
the 4th one's Bride, the 5th one's Seed, and then the 6th one is...
I've heard good things about Seed of Chucky in particular as a sequel.
Right.
That one's probably the best.
Yeah, it's a weird switch, man, because the first 3 are great. I like the whole franchise, but when you look at it from a slasher perspective, they take it pretty seriously. Okay. But I think someone was like,
this is a really ridiculous premise.
He's a foul-mouthed lunatic. Yeah. Like if you guys have never heard the story before, Charles Lee Ray, who is running from the cops. This is the opening scene in Child's Play. He's running from the cops. He goes into a toy store. He realizes that the cops are going to catch him. So, we don't know this, but he just reveals to us that he's into witchcraft and possession and all that stuff. So he touches one of the good guy dolls, and he starts saying the chant or whatever, and then his soul gets transferred into one of them, and he becomes the doll. And so
picked up by a family and
and so it's
the memories of the first one are starting to come back to me a little bit more.
Right. It's a classic. Chucky is a very iconic character, regardless of what you think of the movies. He's made his footprint in society. But having Mark Hamill do it, I'm already picturing and hearing what he's going to sound like. And I don't think he's going to do a direct replica of
the
what
joke.
Brad Dourif did.
I think he knows that he would probably be dumb to do that.
He has to do something different,
absolutely.
and I'm excited to hear it. But it'll be startling at first because I've heard Brad Dourif do it since '88.
Yeah,
like this guy's been doing it for years, and so
he's heard Brad Dourif do it since before he was born, guys.
Right? Yeah. For some weird way, I watched Child's Play before I was born. It was fantastic. But yeah, I've enjoyed this series, even the direct to DVD stuff. As schlocky as Chucky is, and the gore and just the way these movies are presented, it's perfect for straight to DVD. So that's like the one smart thing Universal has done with their direct to DVD stuff is the Chucky movies. So, but I want to see this new incarnation though, because we're dealing with not only a very odd cast with Aubrey Plaza, but we're dealing with a fresh take. It's from one of the producers of It. So you know they're gonna try to take it to like another dimension with this story. So I don't know, man. It'll be fascinating.
It'll be interesting, and also it comes out also on June 21st.
Yep. To compete with Toy Story.
Toy Story and Anna's gonna lose, and then Toy Story. Toy Story and the two toy movies.
One for adults, one for kids.
One for kids.
Yep.
Exactly. That's actually kind of perfect. Mm-hmm. Like opposing.
No, listen. I don't.
And then the next week after this, for some reason, Annabelle comes home. Another toy movie.
Whoever the producer of Child's Play is, they're geniuses. Yeah. Even if they lose spectacularly to Toy Story, which they will, I'm hoping that they have enough bite in the box office to where they're just like, yeah, we did the counter programming pretty well.
Yeah. All the adults who maybe don't have kids. Maybe grew up, with the series, or not don't have kids, or have kids, grown kids, whatever, where they're not specifically part of the Toy Story audience, can go to that, and then meanwhile, the other part of the theater is going to be dominated by the people with kids who want to see the movie.
Right.
And, it's great. It's perfect marketing. So, all right, that's it, guys. I know we went long on the Disney Plus stuff, but it was a lot to cover, and now we're going to go through...
But it'll make up for time, though, because this review will be pretty short.
It will be pretty short. There's really not much to say about the new Hellboy. And yes, this is not another sequel to 2004's Hellboy, although it should be. That's what we should have gotten, particularly because Hellboy 2 was so good. This is a new take on the character. He's played by David Harbour here. But here's the thing, though. Basically just a recycling of the character that we know, just more violent. All right, so the story here, for whatever it is, for whatever it's worth,
if you can
remember it, it's honestly okay. So
I already forgot it.
I'm gonna kind of go through this how I wrote my review last night. I wanted to write it. I was really tired, but I wanted to write it before I forgot it because I felt like if I fell asleep and woke up, I would then eat breakfast, get into the day, then sit down and have no ideas. Because it's one of those movies. And I actually started out my review. I'm very proud of it. It's going to hit my website sometime tomorrow. And I started out my review by saying, it's been about an hour and a half, and now it's been about 20-something hours. Not 20, 19 or so hours since we saw it. And, we had to go to the store after the movie, and I just arrived here yesterday, and the first thing I did was go to the movie with Chase. So we had to stop at the store to get me a few things to eat, and the time it took to drive from the theater to the store, then from the store to home, and all the time in between shopping, was about an hour and a half. And roughly, by the time I got home, got settled in, and got my computer set up, got the internet set up, all of that, that's a lot of time in order to think about this incomprehensible plot that I've figured out what it's about on a premise level, but I can't tell you any of the names or locations or ideas or motivations or anything of these characters because it rushes through so many of them. I can tell you that this is about Hellboy realizing that he has a destiny involving an ancient sort of legend, and that he must use it to defend Earth when an evil queen who had been dismembered and hidden all over the world is being resurrected and wants to basically plot the apocalypse. That's it. That's the plot. Except that they complicate it with two different characters who are side characters with no personality and no purpose in the movie, played by Sasha Lane and Daniel Dae Kim. No purpose. They have Ian McShane's character and a character played by Sophie Okonedo, who I don't know why she's in this, but anyway, explaining the plot, explaining long stretches and paragraphs and pages of dialogue, explaining all this whole thing. And I'm sorry to go like straight in my review. I know I usually throw it to Chase, but I'm here now. So they have all this explaining to do. They explain the plot over and over again, and I don't care about any of it because there's no entryway into this story. It shoves us into this weird, smarmy like narration detailing the past of this evil queen that Ian McShane delivers with a bunch of F-bombs and a bunch of humor for some reason, yet the humor with quotations around it, but with also this weird like dreadful sense of sincerity toward like the supposed evilness of this queen. And then right after that we get shoved into this plot with Hellboy, who goes and with his dad, who's the McShane character, who heads up a paranormal bureau of investigation. They're trying to find out where the pieces are to reach them, so that the evil warthog that has been tasked to, or has taken it upon himself, kind of, to get all the pieces of those of the queen's body, including the head, which is in this box and still alive, all together. Chase is silently laughing across from me, and I'm really happy about this. It feels like a classic kind of Siskel and Ebert.
Because I love what the Warhog says. I can't say it on the podcast, but it's every time he was like F and A, it's like
it's basically he's this evil warthog who curses with anachronistic common English slang and curse words, but in a Cockney accent that absolutely does not fit his character whatsoever. There's no reason that he should be a Cockney
That's why
person.
It's so funny.
He's voiced by Stephen Graham. He's brought to life by really bad visual effects that are not convincing at all. Never do you think that Hellboy, played by David Harbour, is interacting with this visual effects creation. And it's so bad. It's such a terrible character. It has no use except for explaining the plot, moving some stuff forward. He's
a part of a scene where it looks like Son of the Mask, and it's fantastic.
Yes, it's great. It's great, except that it wants to be Son of the Mask. It desires to be Son of the Mask. It's not as good, and that's no, I'm just kidding. But it's a little bit better than Son of the Mask. A little bit. The Son of the Mask is bad. Okay. So this is great. I'm loving the energy that we have here, Trace. So there's this whole subplot involving the witch Baba Yaga, who's this contortionist.
Wait, you got that part? I didn't know what that was.
Oh, this witch Baba Yaga. I don't know who Baba Yaga is, but if they were saying Baba Yaga, I was like, oh, okay. So
we had the Grudge chick, if she was an elderly woman crawling on the ground with some weird pointy boobs, and I was like,
It was disturbing in all the wrong ways.
Yes.
So here's the note about this movie. All right, I have a strong stomach. Like I can take stuff, and so can
I love
Chase.
the Saw franchise.
Yes, this movie is the most obnoxiously gory and grisly thing I've seen in a long time in a big budget mainstream movie, and it's way over the top. And I don't mean that in a good way. I mean in the way that Ebert once described. I think it was Ebert once described as basically so over the top that it circumnavigates the globe and crashes into itself. Because there is so much gore, and always the director here, Neil Marshall, gives it a close-up.
He's worked with gore before. Let's keep that in mind. He does it in a way that works for that movie. But like this is just Descent, out of nowhere.
The Descent. I've heard also pretty good things. I don't know if you've seen it, Doomsday.
You know what's really funny? I was going to bring that up because Doomsday was one of those ones I watched in high school. To be honest with you, I don't remember anything about the movie, but I remember liking it at the time.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I mean I've heard it's like a fun kind of B ultra gore thing, so some pretty good notices for that one. Here though, it's way too much, and the same thing goes with the vulgarity here. There's no purpose for it other than to show that it's edgy. And that's one problem that I've had with the Deadpool movies. This actually brought Deadpool to mind, and I'm going to explain a little bit more why in a second. But that was one thing that I felt like Deadpool was kind of just reveling in this kind of vulgarity just a little bit too much. And here it's way too much. And that's why this is infinitely worse. I'm not trying to compare it at all. In terms of quality, I think that this is infinitely worse than either of the Deadpool movies. I'm not really a fan of those. But I started to appreciate it a little bit more how risky those were as endeavors, because they were trying, maybe didn't quite succeed at doing something a little different with the formula by commenting on it. Here, there's no commentary. All it is it's basically, it's not really an origin story, but it moves like one, because we're introduced to Hellboy. We get his past. We get we actually see here in a really awful scene.
Which is what I wanted the movie to be, was about his character, battling if he is good or evil.
Yes, and they bring that up once.
And that's it.
There's a part at the end where he's given a choice between two paths. Mm-hmm. And one of them keeps him as this kind of foul-mouthed, devil-may-care, to use a pun, kind of dude with a devil-may-care attitude. The other would make him completely uninteresting, but it would make him this bot almost. Mm-hmm. And it's not much of a spoiler to say that he chooses the non-bot one. I won't explain how he gets to that point, but that is one of the plot points here is very, 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 very briefly, and it's probably the reason why my grade is what it is, because I think it's a very interesting idea. They do very briefly question his nature. What is Hellboy at his most useful? And he comes to the right decision, but the movie very briefly struggles with that kind of concept. Then it immediately dismisses it, because the entire conflict here is not personal. It's entirely external. It's between Hellboy and this witch who he doesn't even spend time with until the end of the movie.
Right.
And then he has to suddenly fight her. She's played by Milla Jovovich in one of the worst performances I've ever seen. There are people saying that she's hamming it up. Fine, but she also looks bored in the movie. She looks completely disinterested in everything. There's a scene that kind of reflects the visual effects work in this movie to me, where she's commanding an army at the end of this movie. She's commanding an army, and she's standing in front of what is basically a computer-generated tree, in front of really bad green screen work, and then talking to a bunch of really poorly animated characters against a dark backdrop. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the least appealing images I think I've seen in a big budget, mainstream, supposedly high budgeted movie. I don't know what the budget is on this.
Shouldn't that be an effective, powerful scene for that character?
Yeah, it should. And you would think theoretically it could be, and that's so much here is theoretically interesting.
Right. You
have think about this as like a 3-hour movie with an actual focus on this character, because there's a lot of plot here. Mm-hmm. And if you stretched it out, slowed it down, didn't have all these different characters talking about all this different stuff that doesn't make any sense because of how they tell it, you focus on this character, and that's something that I think,
because that's the whole appeal about Hellboy, is he's the anti-hero. He's literally from hell. He comes to Earth. He is raised by people that
Nazis.
teach him. Yeah, right.
I mean, just to give it away, people know this. This is the origin of the character. If you don't know this, fine, whatever. It's kind of an anticlimax when you find it out. But,
right.
and he then makes a joke about it, which is anyway. But he was raised by Nazis, and he was conceived in a Nazi-led ritual that was housed in black magic and all of that. They were trying to do this with Rasputin comes into it and all of that, and so they're wanting to do that, and so he's literally brought to this world by Nazis. And that's a very, very interesting, potentially prickly kind of thing, but they don't deal with it at all. They turn it into a punchline like every other thing here. And it's so annoying. This thing never stops moving. And I mean that in terms of the loud, extremely loud, aggressive action and the thing where they basically make it into a heavy metal music video, extended one, I think that what they were trying to do was capture the energy of, maybe this is very specific, and it has nothing, I swear it has nothing to do with the fact that Mila Jovovich is in it as well, but it was almost as if they were trying to capture the energy of the second Resident Evil movie, a movie I like, I think is fun, and but it has this sense of dumb fun. It never takes itself seriously. And here you have this really dreadfully sincere approach to a whole lot of plot that doesn't mean a thing. And so I think that it's really aggressively loud. I think that I'm probably going to be giving a slightly higher grade than Chase is. Slightly. It's a bad movie. I'm giving it a D+, only on the level of the fact that I don't think I'm going to be thinking about this movie at all past maybe 2 weeks from now.
Past this recording.
What's Hellboy? And
right.
So
Ron Perlman?
Yeah, should have been. You should have had a Hellboy 3. But we have this instead because capitalism, money, solves or explains everything, basically. And because the second one kind of underperformed in the wake of Dark Knight, they're just like, well, let's just reboot it. And it didn't work. It's just loud, aggressive.
You know what I would compare
dumb
it to?
And boring, and I'm just not going to think about it. It probably precludes something like this being on my top 10 unless it's just a really good year, and I just don't have anything else to put on my list. This isn't quite a 10 worst contender for me, but it's on that kind of that bubble, and it's simply because it's such an in one eye out the other experience,
right,
for me. And so anyway, Chase, take it away.
Well, you know what I would compare it to? I was thinking about this on the drive home last night. You've interacted with like nieces or cousins or little kids that like they play with action figures, and we're guilty of this too as kids. Like we play with action figures and like we shove them together, and we're like, this is what happens when they meet up, and then they go over here and they start shooting, bang, bang, bang. This is literally the fantasy of a 5-year-old playing with action figures and has discovered cursing and violence for the first time. Yeah. That's exactly what this movie is.
Somebody even tweeted, Hellboy is basically what happened when an 11-year-old boy discovered the CGI of a 1999-era Capcom game and went crazy.
Yeah, that's what this is. And
by the way, I'm sorry, I know that this is more like a conversation than anything we've done because we're face-to-face. I just have to say one more time, the effects in this movie are so bad.
They're bad.
It's inexcusable.
It's not just the CGI, it's the practical effects too. Yeah. Like, I could not believe, because there was a specific scene where Hellboy, he's disheveled, I think he's drunk at that point, and he's in the bathroom shaving off his horns. And it has the sound design of the, of the knife hitting the horn, right? Mm. But the horns look plastic because the effects are so low budget. And I'm like, you spent $100 million plus on this movie. Why not at least make it somewhat creative like the originals where like you care?
It reminded me of, and it's a better movie than these, I think, just because of the fact that these movies had nothing good about them, for me at least. But it reminded me aesthetically in terms of the level of visual effects, the low level of visual effects, and the low level of practical effects, and just general, it looks bad too. Like the cinematography is either flat or it's too dark. Flat. And it reminded me of kind of the depressing experience that I had with the Fantastic Four reboot, and also Independence Day Resurgence, which was, I don't know if you saw that one, but it was awful. And the visual effects were constantly just depressingly bad. Mm-hmm. You know what I kind of wanted this to be like? And this is apparently a movie I think I'm only a fan of. I don't think we've ever talked about it. This might backfire. But I kind of wanted it to have the sense of kind of the gory fun of Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. And I don't know if did you ever see that?
So that played in the theater when I was working there, and I never saw it, but I would go into the theater and I saw glimpses of it.
Yeah. And it was one of those movies, it's somewhere down there with this movie in terms of the percentage on Rotten Tomatoes. But I thought that it was pretty good at kind of melding the mythology, which it didn't over-explain. That was really important. I think that's one of the main hang-ups for me here. It melds the mythology with this sense of kind of devil-may-care, hard R-rated, joke telling action that I thought was a much better mixture than this. And I think that I could see them going for that kind of tone, but they didn't achieve it because they
were so concentrated on pushing the boundaries with the cursing and the violence. It's like, and
over-explaining all the stuff.
Right. I would have excused the movie if all we got exposition-wise like that bluntly in the face was the beginning and that was it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it was messy and muddled, but I would have excused it if it was literally just that, show the title, let's move on.
Yeah, exactly. And then maybe establish a few other things here and there through dialogue. But this was literally...
Every scene was, all right, something has happened. What's happened? Well, back in the day...
exactly. They had like 14 different flashbacks, and it was so annoying. God. And then, so basically, it's either the dialogue is a bunch of jokes with F-bombs in it, and a bunch of like really humorous, sardonic...
The humor never works.
Exactly.
I knew we were in trouble when David Harbour put his finger on the phone and said, well, he said the S word, but he was like, I broke it again. It's like, oh my God.
And then they did it like 3 other times after that, and it
wasn't funny the first time.
Exactly. Like, oh, he breaks his phone with his finger.
Cool.
Okay.
Like, it didn't work the first time. Why do we have to reference
those phones? Maybe just get a flip phone? I don't know. Maybe those don't exist anymore.
There's...
Yeah. I keep interrupting you, but I'm sure that you basically have the same...
We have the same thought process, and, I'm not going to compare it to the other ones because that's not what we do.
Yeah, it's not fair.
It's not fair, but there is a certain charisma, strength, and character development within, like, say, when Ron Perlman did it. Where, like, even if that was a crappy movie, which some people might think that is, he brings that character to life.
Yeah.
The problem with this one, there is no life. Yeah. It's almost like they were going through the motions to make a boundary-pushing movie just for the sake of it. And that is what annoyed me the most. There were gratuitous close-ups of people's heads split open with brain matter on there, and it would last for 5 seconds. Why?
It's one of the hardest R's I can think of in a while. It pushes even the boundary of an R. I mean,
when the apocalypse happened, there would be literal cutscenes where, okay, so this is how it kind of played out. Well, Hellboy's in this church, and the Blood Queen's like, the apocalypse is here. All these demons come out from under the ground, right? And then they kind of roam around the city. I had no problem with that. It looked terrible, whatever. It was when they would literally cut to a scene of them grabbing a person and trying to pull them like string cheese and just like cut them open.
I think the two worst for me was one, there was, and I guess the character didn't die because we then see his hand go up to his face. They literally pull the skin off the head of somebody. Then another time, it reminded me of a Mortal Kombat kill where they pull somebody apart by the legs.
Right.
And it all falls out, and we see it. It's grotesque. It's gory. It's ugly.
Yeah.
And because it's so flatly, make this like actively attractive looking. You don't have to worry about the gore because we're watching something aesthetically pleasing. Here, it's just flat, murky cinematography.
It looks like Sharknado, and that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
The way Sharknado is lit and shot, which is a TV movie.
Horrible green screen. Oh my gosh.
It looks exactly like that.
Yeah. Listeners know that we pile on green screen a lot. New listeners will not know that. I'm happy. I hope that you're happy to hear us talk about that because that's a big thing with visual effects. If you can create a world around them that's convincing, Shazam did that. I thought really well recently. This great recent example of a superhero movie that had something to say about
green screen
superheroes.
Worked, but it worked.
Yeah, exactly because they took the time, especially in the flying scenes of that. Great flying effects and great backdrop too. They took the time to perfect it. Here, it's just like they took a day to figure out the.
Well, and speaking of that, that whole third act was like 2 minutes long.
Yes.
As soon as the apocalypse happened, it was gone.
Over. It was almost like they ran out of money. They couldn't do it anymore.
It's crazy.
So all of this conflict comes to something that's basically just this lazy sequel stinger.
We spent 2 hours to basically build up to
and it's an exactly 2 hour movie too.
Yeah.
It's 120 minutes.
It feels like it's 2 years.
Yeah, way too long. Make this 90 minutes, maybe a little bit more tolerable if you just cut out a lot of the repetitive exposition and the stakes reestablishing, all of that. It's just boring, and it's tedious. It's just basically random visual noise.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
It's loud. It's messy. There's no personality to it. I love David Harbour. Yeah. I feel so bad for him because
he's not even good here.
He's not. This is going to be a stain on his career, and I hate to admit that.
Yeah.
I am scared for him to go into another job knowing that will be on his resume.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully what he does, because he's joining the Black Widow movie.
Right.
Hopefully what he does is he bounces back from this in a superhero movie.
And he'll bounce back in July with Stranger Things Season 3. So he's got stuff on the horizon.
People won't talk about this anymore.
Right. And so, but the thing is with this one, like I said before, I think
and by the way, real quick, it's sort of like how people don't talk about Michael B. Jordan in the context of the Fantastic Four reboot, because literally right after that he had Creed, then he had his performance in Black Panther. He's had a couple little roles in between.
I don't like if you have a misstep in your career, cool. But I'm just saying that this will be a stain for him until he bounces back.
Yeah,
I just don't understand what the point of this was. If you were willing to turn down Del Toro for $200 million, which is understandable, negotiate down to maybe $150. You were able to turn him down for a third chapter, but you wanted to sink in $100 million plus for this.
Right.
That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and it makes even less sense when you see the movie too.
Right.
You just look at this. It's a lot of movie, and there's nothing in it.
It's half-assed.
Yeah.
It literally is like you said. Someone just came in. They did like a first draft of something, and they're like, "Yeah, that's fine. Let's move on."
The screenplay is in utter shambles. It's total nonsense.
It's this guy's first ever script.
Yeah, and hopefully what he does is he learns from this, because, I mean, I can't even I can't even look positively at this. It's a bad screenplay.
The only thing I remotely enjoyed were ever so slightly was the two things where we discussed the backstory. Of how he was birthed from the Nazis.
Really cool.
Very, very
really cool idea.
That's
intriguing. Terrible scene, but
terrible
really cool.
scene.
Yeah.
But it's it's like you said, it's concepts that are not fully developed.
Yeah.
That make me angry, because Hellboy is an interesting character. He has to conflict his good side with his bad side because he is a part of, hell and the demons and stuff, but he's been on Earth for several years, and, he kind of combats that. And then the second thing, it was very randomly inserted after he was touching the sword, because once again, we have to see a flash back at some point, was when he was on the back of that weird demon dragon flying through this layer of hell. It looked slightly intriguing.
Yeah, it was like a little vision, kind of,
right,
where he was kind of foreseeing what he could be.
Yeah.
That was really interesting. It was an interesting visual concept. It was kind of undone by the visual effects, I thought.
Right.
Because this movie has some of the worst fire effects, and that's bad. I mean,
it looked trashy.
Yeah.
But I think
it was an interesting concept.
It was the imaginative concept of being like, cool, like there is some creativity in creating, like, the way this looks. And I'm like, but then it was gone before we got a chance to absorb it.
They totally dismiss it. Yeah. All right, folks. So what is your grade?
I don't know. This movie makes me angry. Because I was telling him last night, even down to like the practical effects, I just don't like this movie. I don't like anything about this movie. But, I can't really give it like an F, because you and I both know we reserve that for
special
you cannot save it type of deal.
Yeah.
Couple concepts, interesting. That's as far as I'll go. So maybe a D minus. I'm just not really sure where I'll land. Yeah. But it's one of the worst of the year.
Around, yeah.
It's crazy, man. Like when Del Toro said, I would want to make my third chapter for $200 million. If I was a studio executive, especially after his win for Shape of Water, right?
Yeah.
I would be like, Okay, that's a little high. How about we bring it down to maybe 150, maybe 130? And if he says no, move on. But because that's ultimately what they did. But you were willing to spend $100 million on something that looked like it came out in 1993 from the Asylum Company. What?
Yeah.
Lionsgate, what are you doing?
Imagine a trailer for Hellboy 3 announcing from the visionary director of The Shape of Water.
Yeah.
People would be like, people love Shape of Water. It's extremely popular.
Won Best Picture. He won
One
Best
Picture.
Director.
But most importantly, people like that movie. I mean, it's not one of those that people look back on yet, at least, as one of those typical Best Picture winners and it gets flack. Mm-hmm. It's still seen as this really, really visionary piece of work. I adore the movie. Of course, you knew that. It was my number 3 that year. I would love seeing a Hellboy 3 trailer saying, from the visionary director of The Shape of Water.
Pan's Labyrinth, anything.
Yeah.
He has an astonishing career. You can sell that.
Yeah.
What are you going to sell from Neil Marshall?
Yeah.
The Descent from 11 years ago?
And then two other movies, Doomsday, totally flopped at the box office. Didn't do anything. I've heard good things about it. I've heard it's semi-popular. It's kind of become a cult thing for a few years, but it's kind of disappeared again. Mm-hmm. And then Centurion, his last movie, was one with Michael Fassbender. Didn't do anything because it was barely released in the U.S.
Right.
It was more released, I think, in the U.K. And so you have this basically riding on The Descent, which people like, but it came out 13 years ago. You're not going to get people excited by saying from the director of The Descent because not everybody will have seen it.
It's more of a cult film, too.
Yeah, exactly. Not everybody will have seen it. The fans of it will be probably confused why he's doing a Hellboy movie. Mm-hmm. So you never know if it's actually going to sell them on it either. And, it just... And yeah, I mean, it doesn't even seem like it comes from a director who made The Descent. It's very poorly staged. It's poorly edited. We didn't even get into that, but it's...
The messiness of the script and the exposition scenes reflect the editing.
Yeah,
because
there's too many ideas they're trying to juggle.
Right, you have they're battling this weird thing where they have the present going on. Someone has to reference something. We show a flashback for maybe 30 seconds and go back, and then we continue on. But then we also have all this stuff going on over here. Then the C storyline has a flashback. You have all this stuff that doesn't coherently come together. And I even realized it was a problem when you said the actor's name was Daniel Kim.
Daniel Dae Kim. Yeah.
Dae Kim. So
from Lost.
He was literally sitting in a helicopter, and he had to have like this weird 5-second flashback. He was like, "Man, when I was in the military, why did we need that? What purpose did that serve?"
It's like they prepared for what I was talking about, a longer movie.
Right.
And so whenever they went in to shoot it, they're like, "Oh, well, okay, we're just going to have to just shoot this little flash," or edited all the other stuff out of the scene or something.
Right.
It's interesting. Just a little bit ago, we were watching a Siskel and Ebert video about the worst films of 1991. It's something that we like to do, or we kind of established it last time I was here, is watch little Siskel and Ebert videos. There are not very many of them. We've watched most of them already, but it's fun. And they were talking about the worst movies of 1991, and Ebert chose as the worst Highlander 2: The Quickening. I haven't seen it. I don't know if Chase has seen it.
I haven't.
Oh, okay, but he was talking about how it was so completely disorganized it felt like key scenes weren't filmed. And that's what it kind of feels like here.
Yeah, it feels like stuff is missing.
It doesn't feel maybe quite as dire as he made Highlander 2 out to be. I think it's a little bit better than a complete disaster, but it is pretty disastrous in terms of how it's constructed, how it moves forward, and I felt exhausted, but in just a numbed way. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't feel engaged in the project. It's basically the opposite, at least for me, and maybe this is not as popular with some people, but I felt like the opposite experience that I had with Pirates of the Caribbean 2. Also a movie that's very heavy in explanations. Mm-hmm. Also a movie that has a bunch of visual effects, but all of it's really well put together. It's because it's Gore Verbinski. If you have Gore Verbinski direct this movie, I think that would be really cool.
Right.
Because I think that he would be able to make sense of it. He wouldn't be afraid to go 2.5 hours with it, because there's about 2.5 hours of material here, and they've put it down to 2 hours, and they've compressed it way too much, but they should have taken out a bunch of it. all of the circular exposition and just made it a 90-minute movie.
Everything feels random.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking about this.
Moving randomly from one idea to the next.
Well, I was thinking about this one particular scene with when he meets Sacha Lane's character. They're talking as if they know each other for 20 years. We don't know that. And then we don't actually find out how they met until like 30 minutes on in the movie with this random flashback going, hey, you remember that time that like I went to your parents' house? It's like, why was this placed here?
Yeah.
It's just, it's baffling.
Exactly. Have all the flashbacks be kind of a prologue.
Right.
Or something.
It's weird.
Or something like that. Yeah, it's really bad. So, guys, don't see Hellboy. I'm not even going to make a joke about how you should see Hellboy. Just don't see Hellboy. It's pretty bad. I have a feeling it's going to fail at the box office. We won't get into that, but it's Shazam did better, I think, than maybe you predicted last week. But I think that in the wake of that and right before Avengers and stuff like this is going to
get buried.
It's going to get buried, and this is going to be one of those things that maybe some people will question the whole R-rated superhero thing. Because we don't have an announced Deadpool 3. We don't have anything that could indicate that something's going to come along and take over that mantle. It's not going to be this.
You know what's going to be really embarrassing is that it's not going to do much better, but little will probably beat out this and Missing Link, which is unfortunate about that one.
And I even say this. I feel like I even say this sometimes. Like, placement on the box office doesn't matter. I think that what Chase is saying is even if Hellboy's number one or the highest of the new releases, profitable is a different concept because this movie is very expensive.
It's only going to make about $10 million this week.
Yeah, and so
if I had to guess,
it's gonna lose money for Lionsgate, and it's gonna do bad. Even if it's higher than Little or Missing Link on the box office chart, those two cost less, and those two are going to be more profitable. I have a feeling lots of people are going to see Little. Yeah. I think it's going to be very popular, and especially on the kind of following up a lot of these comedies led by African American female talents. All of that, it's gonna.
Well, I said this in my review. I didn't like the movie, as you guys can hear from my mini review I have on the podcast channel. But Will Packer's not an idiot. He knows how to produce movies that crowds love.
Yeah, exactly. And so that one's gonna do well, and this is gonna get buried not only by that, but I mean, let's face it, Breakthrough next Wednesday. It's a Christian movie, probably gonna do really well. They're selling the heck out of it.
It's got a star from This Is Us, and that's a very popular show.
That combined with The Curse of La Llorona, which I think is probably people are underrating in terms of how well it's going to do. It's maybe not going to be the breakout hit of something like It, but it's going to do pretty well as a Conjuring spinoff, and that's going to bury this even more. This thing is getting swallowed up.
It's DOA.
Yeah, and then once Avengers Endgame comes out, it's over.
It's done.
Yeah, it's completely done. It's probably going to be out of theaters in mid-May. Even before that. So, yeah, honestly, I hate to say this because it sounds really cynical. It deserves its fate. It's just not good enough for me to say you should go out and support this because it's just bad.
It's on the level of whoever signed off on like A Wrinkle in Time or whoever signed off on I would even say Justice League, like these really expensive movies that have small return. You need to lie in the bed that you just made because you made a terrible decision. Yeah. And I think we're so strongly like against this movie even happening and rooting for its failure almost. I hate to say it because Lionsgate should have just went with a Chapter 3 from Del Toro.
Exactly.
And that's what's more frustrating.
It's bad enough that it makes you miss what didn't even come out.
Right.
You just wish that instead of this. And in fact, it would have worked too because this, I believe, was either the release weekend or like 1 weekend removed from the release weekend of the original Hellboy, which came out right before Spider-Man 2. And I think it was Spider-Man 2. I'm pretty sure Spider-Man 2 led the summer in May, so of that year. And Hellboy came out right before that. Things have done well. Winter Soldier was an early April release. And there's others, I'm sure.
And it's not like we're rooting for this to fail. It's like you and I can look at Rotten Tomatoes ratings, and we're still going to go see it. Yeah. Because we go in with an open mind. But when you literally start out your movie, and this is within the first 30 seconds, with exposition that is shot poorly and acted poorly and just rushed to hell, I knew we were in for a bad time.
I mean, I could care less at the end of the day, whenever I'm sitting in the movie and watching it,
we give any movie a chance.
Yeah, Hansel and Gretel is uniformly hated. Mm-hmm. I liked it, and I didn't care. I actually don't even think that I knew its critical fate yet. I think I saw it. It didn't screen for critics. It was one of those that wasn't screened. So I saw it when at the 7 p.m. or whatever, 8 p.m. screening Thursday night because I was excited for it. Mm-hmm. So before really any critics had their say, I realized I liked it. And then the next morning, whenever I got up and looked at the tomato meter, it was bad. And I was like, oh man, it's
unfortunate, but whatever.
But I still like it. And it's
I like
the kind of mix of, again, just mythology and goofiness that I think makes it fun. And if this movie, we wouldn't have lied about it. If it had been like that, if we would have had fun with this new Hellboy, we would have told you. But it is not fun. It's the opposite of that. It's just a slog.
Listen, I don't take any type of value in that. Like I thought Little looked bad. I didn't like it. I thought What Men Want looked bad. I didn't like it. I thought Escape Room looked atrocious. I thought it was fine. Yeah. So it doesn't. I don't really care. I will always give it a shot, but because I was excited for it. I was like, "Hey, David Harbour, Hellboy, let's do this." But my word, I did not expect that big of a train wreck.
Yeah, it's bad. So,
but speaking of continuing on this show and just talking about movies and stuff, next week it's gonna be pretty great.
Yeah, we are going to be kind of handicapping all the movies that we saw at the Dallas International Film Festival, which starts for us in 21 hours.
Yes.
So I'm really excited. Again, I just think that these movies that we're seeing sound really interesting. I think that there's a couple that don't have release dates yet, but pretty much everything does. We're seeing some movies that are arriving at the festival either well after or just after their releases. Like, for instance, Her Smell opens in limited release today.
And I want people to...
And then it opens for us next week.
Right, and I want people to understand this. As much as we love covering DIFF, this is not a Toronto Film Festival. You're not going to see movies that you're going to see during Oscars. Joel and I are going to be discussing movies that will probably not be talked about on the internet.
Right, right. Yeah, like there's one, I don't even know how popular it's going to be, but it's called Brian Banks. It's one of our... It's our movie on Wednesday.
That might be a crowd pleaser.
Yeah,
we don't
that
really
might
know
be.
yet.
It comes out in August. That's the latest. That's the longest from now. Mm-hmm. August 9th. And so it seems apt for a movie like that to be released in August. It's got a sports feel. Movies have been released in that time frame before and done really well. But I'm really excited for it. Yeah.
I'm just saying, don't expect something like TIFF where we're going to get like Green Book and First Man. It's like, it's not going to be anything like that. But I hope you guys enjoy our, commentating on, these smaller films that will probably never see the light of day. Yeah, so that's all.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to them.
Yep. So that will be next week.
Yeah, episode 273, and then of course the week after that, we're taking off. So
we're not going to be covering Endgame. You guys know how it goes.
Exactly. No, Endgame. Can't wait. I'm seeing it on Friday afternoon. I'm not seeing it on Thursday, but
I'm seeing it Thursday night and then Saturday night, and then we're recording Saturday morning. So.
Yeah. So we'll be able to get that out for you. So. It gives you guys a day to see it around a day, at least if you're listening in the United States, you'll be able to. I think it's actually a worldwide thing. So
it's a worldwide thing.
Yeah. It may be opening like on Wednesday in other countries. I think that it's opening on a Wednesday night for the UK. That usually happens, but same weekend. So it gives you all a day or two to see it and kind of get your head around it. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot to talk about, and I can't wait to see it. So, but this, just. Can't wait. So just take us out. I just lost my brain there.
Well, I was just gonna plug our socials. You can follow me on Twitter at RealChaseLee. Follow our podcast Twitter page, which is at RealMeIn Podcast. And of course, with this podcast, we're on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Spotify, all that good stuff. Please help spread it around and let people know this is what you like listening to. And hey, if you really like this episode because we were in the same room talking, well, we're not going to be able to do that all the time. But if you like it enough and this thing grows and we can get some funding or whatever, then we'll be able to do this every week. But that's where you can find me and all my stuff. Joel, where can people find you?
You can find my writing at joelonfilm.com. By the time everybody's listening to this tomorrow-ish, you should be able to find reviews of Hellboy. I'll have one of that. We're seeing Missing Link a little later today, so I'm going to be reviewing that as well. And then I also caught up with a couple of movies on streaming that I missed earlier in the year. Don't Come Back from the Moon, small sci-fi tinge drama with co-starring, they're not the main stars, but co-starring Rashida Jones and James Franco. Not a good movie. And then a little horror movie that we actually talked about the trailer of. It was one of the last trailers I covered, Pledge. Also not very good. So, yeah, basically,
Spoiler
hopefully
alert.
Missing Link turns this around because otherwise it's a 1.5 star weekend. But in any case, yeah, you can find me there. You can find me on Twitter at Real Joel Copling, on Letterboxd at J Copling, on Dallas Movie Screenings. I will have a lot of, obviously, reviews of the festival movies, and I've also got at least one, maybe two non-festival movies coming in April there. So, yeah, that's where I am on the internet.
Yeah, so next week, guys, will be episode 273 of the Real Man Coleman Movie Podcast, where we'll be covering all the films that we saw at the Dallas International Film Festival. But for this episode, let us know all your thoughts down below, or tweet at us, email us, whatever. You guys know the drill. We'll see you guys next week. I am Chase. That is Joel. Bye-bye.
Bye.